The galaxy had watched humanity for 200 years. They saw a species that smiled too much, a species that built hospitals on distant worlds and shared food with hungry colonies, a species that never raised weapons, never joined wars, and never showed teeth. The Empire saw weakness. Overlord sat on his throne made of black metal and bones. His advisors stood before him, showing maps of human space, 3 colony worlds, billions of soft creatures living in peace, easy targets. They have no real military, War Commander said. His voice was like grinding stones. Their ships carry scientists and traders. Their soldiers have not fought a real battle in generations. They are prey animals pretending to be equals. Smiled, his teeth were sharp and many. Then we shall remind them of their place in this galaxy. Attack all 3 worlds at once. Leave no survivors. Let the universe see what happens to the weak. Ambassador of the Galactic Council stood in the shadows. He was old and had seen many wars. Overlord, I must advise caution. The humans chose peace. This does not mean they cannot fight. Laughed. They chose peace because they are afraid. Every species that matters has fought wars. The humans hide behind smiles and handshakes. They are nothing. Waved his hand. The attack begins tomorrow. This meeting is over. Bowed and left, but he looked back once and his eyes held something that might have been fear, not fear of what was coming. The next morning, fire fell from the sky on 3 worlds. New Sol was a beautiful colony. 20 million humans lived there in tall cities surrounded by green forests. They were eating breakfast when the fleet appeared. The attack lasted 4 hours. When it ended, nothing remained but ash and silence. Haven Prime held 800 million people, families, children, schools and parks and dreams. They burned it all. Their weapons turned oceans to steam and mountains to dust. Terra Nova was the oldest human colony, 1 billion souls who had built a new home among the stars. They sent distress signals for 6 hours. No help came in time. They made sure to record everything. They wanted the humans to see. 2 billion humans died in one day. Admiral Park Ho received the news while standing in a grand hall on the Galactic Council station. He was attending a peace summit. Representatives from 40 species surrounded him, all watching, waiting to see how the humans would react. The message came through his personal device. He read it once, then again. His face did not change. His hands did not shake. He simply stood very still for a long moment. The ambassador stepped forward with a cruel smile. Admiral Park, I believe you have received some unfortunate news. The Empire has decided that humanity needs to learn its place. We are prepared to accept your surrender. Your remaining worlds will become our territory. Your people will serve us. This is mercy. Park Ho looked up slowly. Every alien in the room stepped back. They did not know why. Something in his eyes had changed. Something old and cold and patient. He smiled. It was not a human smile. It was the smile of something that had been waiting, something that had been holding itself back for a very long time. Mercy, he said softly. You speak to me of mercy. The ambassador's smile faded. You have no choice. Your species is weak. Everyone knows this. Park Ho laughed. It was a quiet sound, but it filled the entire hall. Weak, yes, that is what you believe. He turned to look at all the watching aliens. That is what everyone believes. He put away his device and straightened his uniform. 200 years ago, humanity almost destroyed itself. We had weapons that could crack planets. We had soldiers who knew nothing but war. We killed each other by the billions over land, over ideas, over nothing at all. The room was silent. No one had heard this before. We looked at what we had become and we were horrified. So we made a choice. We locked away our weapons. We trained our soldiers to build instead of destroy. We chose peace, not because we were weak, but because we were terrified of our own strength. He walked toward the door. Every step was slow and measured. You killed 2 billion of my people today, children, families, innocents who believed the universe was safe. He stopped at the door and looked back. They have made a mistake that cannot be undone. You wanted to see what humans are capable of. You wanted to wake the monster we locked away. His smile grew wider, and every alien in the room felt cold. Congratulations, you succeeded. He left the hall without another word. On Earth, Dr. Bin received a call she had hoped would never come. She was 60 years old and had spent her entire life guarding secrets, weapons that humanity had sworn never to use, technologies that could end civilizations. Project Hellfire is authorized, the voice said. Unlock everything. Her hands trembled as she entered the codes. Massive doors that had been sealed for 2 centuries began to open. Behind them sat ships of war that made vessels look like toys, weapons that bent gravity and tore holes in space itself. God forgive us, she whispered, because we will not forgive them. Captain was training new recruits when her orders arrived. She was known as the coldest officer in the fleet. She never smiled. She never showed fear. She had been waiting for this day her entire career. Ghost Reapers, she called to her elite team, we have work to do. They did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They simply checked their weapons and prepared. They had trained for this. Every day for 20 years, they had prepared for the moment when humanity would need killers again. Sergeant Dew stood before 10,000 ground troops. Veterans all, each one a volunteer for the hardest duty in human space. They think we forgot how to fight, he said. They think peace made us soft. Today, we remind the galaxy why humanity chose to be kind. He raised his fist. Because the alternative is what comes next. The soldiers roared, not with anger but with purpose. Lieutenant Han Mira worked through the night, her screens filled with data. She had found their weakness, a flaw in their neural network that connected all their ships, a single point of failure that they thought no one knew about. She smiled grimly. They really should have done their research on us. At midnight Earth time, every screen on every human world displayed the same message. The words were simple, but they changed everything. All restrictions lifted. Humanity is now at war. Across the galaxy, they celebrated their victory. They did not know that they had just made the worst mistake in the history of their species. They had poked the sleeping giant. And now it was awake. They expected humanity to mourn. They expected weeks of crying and speeches and funeral ceremonies. They expected the soft creatures to beg for peace, to offer anything to make the pain stop. They did not expect silence. For 3 days humanity said nothing. No messages, no demands, no threats. The communication channels remained empty. War Commander found this strange but not alarming. They are broken, he told Overlord. The attack destroyed their spirit. They will surrender soon. Nodded, prepare occupation forces. We will claim Earth within the month. Neither of them knew what was happening on the other side of human space. Deep beneath the mountains of old Earth, doors that had been sealed for 200 years now stood open. Dr. Bin walked through corridors that had not seen light in generations. Her footsteps echoed against metal floors covered in dust. She remembered the stories her grandmother told her. Stories about the old wars, about the time when humans turned their brilliance toward destruction instead of creation, about weapons so terrible that their own makers wept when they saw what they had built. The containment protocols, she said to her assistant, a young man named Ho who looked pale and scared. Do you know why we created them? He shook his head. Because we were too good at killing. She stopped before a massive vault door. Every species in the galaxy developed weapons slowly over thousands of years. They had time to learn wisdom, time to understand consequences. She entered the final code. Humanity did it in less than 3 centuries. We went from throwing rocks to splitting atoms in the blink of a cosmic eye. The vault door opened. Ho gasped. Inside sat rows upon rows of weapons, missiles that could destroy moons, rifles that fired concentrated starlight, armor that made soldiers into walking tanks, and at the center, something massive covered in a black sheet. "What is that?" Ho whispered. Ben pulled away the sheet. Beneath it sat a device the size of a small building. It hummed with contained power. "We call it Genesis Null. It can sterilize a planet in 6 hours, kill every living thing down to the bacteria." Her voice was hollow. "We built it during the last war. We almost used it on ourselves." Ho stared at her. "Why would we create such a thing?" "Because we could, because when humans are afraid, we build, and when we are angry." She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Across the solar system, hidden shipyards came alive. Ships that the galaxy had never seen emerged from asteroids and moons. They were not beautiful like trading vessels. They were not elegant like diplomatic cruisers. They were ugly and brutal and built for one purpose only: war. Captain stood on the bridge of the battleship Vengeance. Her crew moved around her in perfect silence. No jokes, no nervous chatter. These were the Ghost Reapers, the deadliest soldiers humanity had ever produced. "Status report," she said. "All systems ready, Captain. The fleet is assembled. 47 warships, 12 carriers, 300 fighter squadrons." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Wu, checked his screens. "They have no idea we exist." Nodded. "They think our military ships are cargo haulers with weak shields and no weapons." A thin smile crossed her face. "They did not wonder why our ships were so large. They did not ask what we were hiding in all that extra space." She pressed a button. Panels across the ship slid away. Hidden cannons emerged. Missile bays opened. The cargo hauler transformed into a fortress of death. "Show time," she said. Admiral Park Ho addressed the combined fleet from his flagship, the carrier Judgment. His face filled every screen on every ship. 200 years ago, our ancestors looked at the ashes of Earth and made a choice. They chose to be better. They chose peace over power, kindness over conquest. They believed that the universe would reward such virtue. His expression hardened. They were wrong. The universe does not reward virtue. It only respects strength, and we have been hiding our strength for too long. He leaned forward. Today, we stop hiding. Today, they learn why humanity locked itself away. Not because we were weak, because we were dangerous, because we were the most efficient killers this galaxy has ever seen. He raised his hand. "Fleet, move out. First target, the border station at Nexus 7. Time to arrival, 6 hours. Rules of engagement, none. Take no prisoners. Leave no witnesses." The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel. War Commander was eating when the alarm sounded. He dropped his food and ran to the command center of Nexus 7. Screens showed impossible readings. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Ships, Commander, human ships." The officer's voice shook. "But these readings cannot be correct. They show weapons we have never seen, power levels that should not be possible." "Grab the controls. Hail them, tell them to surrender." The screens flickered. Captain's face appeared. Her eyes were empty and cold. "Surrender," she said. "You come to our worlds, you kill our children, you burn our homes, and now you ask us to surrender." Felt something he had not felt in decades: fear. "We can negotiate," he said quickly. "The attack was a mistake, we can." "No," cut him off. "There is no negotiation, there is no mercy. You wanted war with humanity, now you have it." The transmission ended. 47 minutes later, Nexus 7 was gone. Not damaged, not captured. Gone. The entire station and every ship defending it had been reduced to atoms. The battle had not been a fight. It had been an execution. News of the defeat reached Overlord within hours. He stared at the report, unable to understand what he was reading. 1 station destroyed, 47 ships lost, 0 human casualties. He looked at his advisors. How is this possible? No one answered. Ambassador stepped forward from the shadows. I tried to warn you, Overlord. I told you the humans chose peace. I told you this did not mean they could not fight. Turned on him with rage. You knew about this. You knew they had such weapons. I suspected. His voice was calm. Every species that survives long enough to reach the stars has one thing in common. They all had to defeat themselves first. The humans nearly destroyed their own world with war. They learned what they were capable of, and they chose to lock it away. He looked at the burning remains of Nexus 7 on the screen. You have forced them to unlock it, and now you will see what the most violent species in the galaxy can do when it stops holding back. Said nothing. For the first time in his long reign, he had no words. Across the border, Sergeant Dew landed on a small world with 10,000 troops. The defenders outnumbered them 5-1. The battle was supposed to last weeks. It lasted 2 days. Human soldiers moved like ghosts. They struck from shadows and vanished before they could respond. They used weapons the aliens had never seen. They fought without fear, without hesitation, without mercy. When it was over, Dew stood among the ruins and looked at the sky. This is just the beginning, he said quietly. We are coming for all of them. Lieutenant Han Mira sent her final report to Admiral Park. She had found everything: fleet positions, supply routes, communication codes, and most importantly, the location of their. They thought they were attacking a peaceful species, she wrote. They thought we were prey. They never bothered to learn our history. They never asked why a species as old as humanity had never conquered anyone. She attached her findings and pressed send. Now they will learn the hard way. The Second Human War had begun, but everyone who knew history understood the truth. This was not war. This was revenge. 2 weeks into the war, the Empire was burning. Admiral Park Ho stood before a holographic map of enemy space. Red markers showed destroyed stations, captured worlds, and shattered fleets. There were so many red markers that parts of the map looked like they were bleeding. Status report, he said. Lieutenant Han Mira stepped forward. 30% of the fleet has been eliminated, 12 border stations destroyed, 4 supply worlds captured. Enemy communication network is in chaos. Park nodded slowly. Casualties. There's approximately 2 million military personnel. Ours, 412. The numbers hung in the air. 400 human lives against 2 million. The mathematics of the war told its own story. It is not enough, Park said quietly. They killed 2 billion of us. We have barely begun to repay that debt. He turned to his commanders. Implement Doctrine Zero. No more captured worlds. No more occupied stations. From now on, we destroy everything we touch. Let nothing remain. Captain received her new orders aboard the Vengeance. She read them twice, then smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Ghost Reapers, she announced to her crew. We have new targets: the military command station, their largest shipyard, their main supply depot. She looked at each of her officers in turn. We hit all 3 tonight. We leave 1 survivor from each location. Her second-in-command, Wu, raised an eyebrow. 1 survivor, Captain. Someone has to tell the others what happened. His voice was ice. Fear is a weapon too. The raids began at midnight station time. The military command station held 3,000 officers. It was supposed to be the most secure location in their space. It had shields that could stop asteroid impacts. It had weapons that could vaporize entire fleets. It fell in 4 hours. Led the assault personally. Her team cut through soldiers like they were not there. Human weapons tore through alien armor. Human tactics confused and terrified defenders who had never faced such enemies. When it was over, stood in the command center surrounded by bodies. 1 officer remained alive, shaking in a corner. She walked to him slowly, bent down, looked into his terrified eyes. You will live, she said. You will go back to your leaders, and you will tell them what you saw here tonight." The officer could barely speak. "What? What do you want me to say?" Leaned closer. "Tell them this. You wanted to see what humans are capable of. Keep watching. We are just getting started." She left him there among the dead. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from 40 species demanded to speak with humanity. They wanted the violence to stop. They wanted peace. Admiral Park agreed to address them via hologram. "You call for restraint," he said, looking at the assembled aliens. "You beg us to show mercy. You speak of galactic law and civilized behavior." His image flickered with contained rage. Where was your restraint when New Soul burned? Where was your mercy when Haven Prime died? Where were your laws when Terra Nova screamed for help? The council chamber was silent. "We asked for aid. We sent distress signals for 6 hours. 6 hours our people died while you watched. 6 hours our children burned while you did nothing." Park's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire room. "You chose to stay silent. You chose to let the slaughter us without consequence." He straightened his uniform. "Now you will watch again. You will watch as we tear their empire apart piece by piece. You will watch as we repay every death with interest. And you will stay silent just as you did before." The transmission ended. No one in the council spoke for a long time. On the ground, Sergeant Dew led his forces deeper into territory. They moved from world to world, a wave of destruction that could not be stopped. But Dew noticed something changing in his soldiers. They were becoming harder, colder. The rage that had driven them at the start was transforming into something else, something darker. He pulled aside one of his youngest soldiers, a woman named Oh Jin, who had lost her entire family on New Soul. "You killed 17 today," he said, "more than anyone else in the unit." She did not look at him, not enough. "Jin," he waited until she met his eyes, "is this who you want to become?" "They killed my daughter." Her voice was flat, empty. She was 7 years old. She loved to draw pictures of flowers. She wanted to be an artist. A tear rolled down her cheek, but her expression did not change. "So yes, Sergeant, this is exactly who I want to become." Dew had no answer. He understood. Every human soldier understood. But he wondered what would be left of them when this was over. Dr. Bin deployed her latest creation. She called it the Swarm. Millions of tiny machines, each one the size of a finger. They moved through space like a cloud of silver dust. When they found ships, they ate them. They broke down metal and fuel and weapons into raw materials, then used those materials to make more of themselves. The first fleet to encounter the swarm numbered 800 ships. They fired everything they had at the silver cloud: missiles, energy beams, nuclear weapons. The swarm absorbed it all, then it attacked. 20 minutes later, nothing remained of the fleet but floating debris. Bin watched the footage in her laboratory. Her assistant Ho stood beside her, looking sick. "This is wrong," he said quietly. "We are becoming monsters." "We were always monsters." Bin's voice was tired. "We just pretended otherwise for 200 years. They reminded us of what we truly are." She turned off the screen. Every species in the galaxy evolved to survive. Some became fast, some became strong, some became smart. She looked at her hands. Humans became adaptable. We could live anywhere, eat anything, survive anything. And when we encountered threats, we did not run or hide. We eliminated them. "But we chose to be different," Ho protested. "We chose peace." "Yes," Bin nodded slowly. "And now we have chosen war. That is what makes us truly dangerous. We do not fight because we must. We fight because we decide to. And once we decide, nothing in the universe can stop us." Overlord received daily reports of defeat and destruction. His empire was crumbling. His generals were dead or fleeing. His people were terrified. "How did this happen?" he demanded at his war council. "They were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be prey. No one had answers. War Commander spoke via hologram from a hidden location. Overlord, we must consider surrender. Every day we fight, we lose more. The humans are not conquering our worlds. They are destroying them. If we continue, there will be nothing left. Slammed his fist on the table. Surrender is not possible. We are the Empire. We do not bow to inferior species. They are not inferior, looked exhausted. They never were. We simply believed our own lies. He leaned forward. Overlord, they have found they are coming. If we do not surrender now, they will finish us. Went quiet. His eyes moved to a screen showing the human fleet advancing toward Prime. Thousands of ships, weapons that understanding, an army that had not lost a single battle. Put it to a vote, he said finally. Let the people decide. Do we surrender or do we fight to the end? The vote came back within hours. The people chose to fight. But on human ships, another vote was taking place. Admiral Park had given the same choice to his own people. They have offered unconditional surrender, he announced. They will give us everything, their weapons, their territory, their leaders for trial. The question before you is simple: do we accept, or do we finish what they started? The human vote came back within hours as well. Humanity chose to continue. Captain received the news with a nod. Then we keep going, until there is nothing left to destroy. The fleet turned toward Prime. The final battle was coming, and humanity was not interested in mercy. The human fleet arrived at Prime like a storm made of steel and fire. Admiral Park Ho stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the enemy through the main. It was a large planet, covered in cities and military installations. Billions of lived there, the heart of an empire that had ruled its corner of the galaxy for 10,000 years. All ships in position, Lieutenant Han Mira reported. The defense fleet is assembling. They outnumber us 3-1. Park did not blink. Numbers mean nothing. Begin the attack. The battle for Prime was the largest space engagement in galactic history. 5,000 ships fought in the darkness between stars. Energy beams cut through the void. Missiles left trails of light across the sky. Explosions bloomed like terrible flowers. They fought with everything they had. They were defending their home, their families, their entire species. They showed courage that even their enemies could respect. It was not enough. Human ships moved with perfect coordination. Human weapons struck with deadly precision. Human tactics adapted to every countermove before it could succeed. Within hours, the fleet was broken. The survivors fled or surrendered. The path to the was open. Captain did not participate in the space battle. She had a different mission. Her shuttle landed in the heart of the capital city while fighting still raged in orbit. Her ghost reapers moved through empty streets, heading toward the military command center where War Commander was directing the defense. He should have stayed in hiding, she said to her team. Coming here was a mistake. They reached the command center as dawn broke over the alien city. Guards tried to stop them. They failed. Walked through corridors filled with bodies, her boots leaving prints in alien blood. She felt nothing. She had stopped feeling anything a long time ago. There would be time for emotions later. Now there was only the mission. She found in the main control room, surrounded by his last defenders. He was shouting orders into communication devices that no one was answering anymore. War Commander called out, "It is over." Turned, his eyes widened when he saw the human soldiers. "You cannot be here. The building is secure. How did you?" "You still do not understand." Walked toward him slowly. "There is nowhere we cannot go, nothing we cannot break, no one we cannot reach." The last defenders raised their weapons. His team killed them in seconds. Now only remained. He stood tall, refusing to show fear. "I am a warrior of the Empire. I do not beg." "I do not want you to beg," stopped in front of him. "I want you to know why you are going to die." She pulled out a small device. A hologram appeared. Images of New Sol, Haven Prime, Terra Nova, children playing in parks, families eating dinner, old people telling stories to young ones. 2 billion lives, said. 2 billion stories that will never be told. 2 billion dreams that will never come true. She put the device away. You ordered the attack. You chose the targets. You decided that human lives were worth nothing. Said nothing. There was nothing to say. I had a sister on New Sol. His voice was quiet. She was a teacher. She loved her students like they were her own children. She never hurt anyone in her entire life. She raised her weapon. This is for her. The shot echoed through the empty building. Stood over the body for a long moment. Then she spoke into her communicator. Target eliminated, moving to secondary objective. She did not look back. On the flagship, Admiral Park received word of death. He nodded once, then turned to his next task. Doctor, he said into the communication channel, is Genesis null ready? Ben's voice came through, heavy with exhaustion. Yes, Admiral, it is in position above the planet. One command and Prime becomes a dead world. Park looked at the planet below. Billions of lives, not all of them were soldiers, most were civilians, families, children. Hold position, he said. We will give them one chance to surrender. He broadcast to the entire planet. His voice filled every communication device, every screen, every speaker. People of Prime, your fleet is destroyed, your military commander is dead, your empire is finished. He paused. I am giving you 1 hour. Surrender unconditionally or I will end your species forever. Overlord received the message in his palace. He sat alone in his throne room, surrounded by shadows and silence. Everything he had built was crumbling. Everything he had believed was wrong. His advisors were dead or fled. His generals had failed. His people were crying in the streets, waiting for the end. He thought about fighting, about dying with honor, about taking as many humans with him as possible. Then he thought about the children. Children who had never asked for this war, who had never hurt anyone, who deserved a chance to live even if their empire did not. He walked to his communication console and began to speak. This is Overlord of the Empire. I surrender, unconditionally and completely. I surrender myself, my military, my government, and my people to human authority. His voice broke. Please, do not punish the innocent for the sins of their leaders. I am the one who ordered the attack. I am the one who killed your people. Take my life if you must, but spare my children. He fell silent. The message was sent. Admiral Park listened to the surrender with a stone face. Around him, his officers waited for orders. The entire fleet waited. The entire galaxy watched. He could end, though, with a single word. Genesis null would wipe them from existence. Justice for 2 billion human souls. But then what? He thought about the humans they used to be. The peaceful people who built hospitals and shared food. The species that chose kindness over conquest. Were they still those people? Could they ever be again? He opened a channel to Dr. Ben. Stand down Genesis null. Return it to storage. Ben's relief was obvious. Thank you, Admiral. Park turned to his officers. We accept the surrender, but our work is not done. We will occupy Prime. We will dismantle their military completely. We will try their leaders for war crimes, but we will not commit genocide. Lieutenant looked uncertain. Admiral, the vote said to continue. The people want revenge. The people wanted justice. Park's voice was firm. There is a difference. Killing soldiers who attacked us is justice. Destroying an entire species, including those who had no part in the attack, is something else. He looked at Prime through the... We came here as angels of death. We showed them what humanity is capable of when pushed too far. They will never forget. The galaxy will never forget. He straightened his shoulders. But if we become the monsters they thought we were, then they win. They proved that we were never truly peaceful, that our kindness was just weakness waiting to be exposed. He turned to face his crew. We are better than that. We have always been better than that, and we will prove it now when it matters most. Sergeant Dew landed on Prime with the occupation force. He expected fighting, resistance, desperate last stands. Instead, he found a broken people, civilians huddled in their homes, children crying, parents praying, a species that had learned too late what kind of enemy they had made. He remembered Oh Jin, the soldier who had lost her daughter. She walked beside him through the empty streets. "We could kill them all," she said quietly. "We have the power, we have the right." "Do we want to?" Dew asked. She was silent for a long time, then she shook her head. "No, my daughter would not have wanted this." Tears filled her eyes. "She would have wanted me to stop, to remember who I was before the war made me into something else." Dew put a hand on her shoulder. "Then let us honor her by being the people she believed we were." They continued walking through the conquered city. Behind them, human soldiers began the work of occupation, not destruction. Rebuilding. 1 year had passed since the war ended. The Galactic Council chamber was fuller than it had ever been. Representatives from every known species had gathered to witness something historic. For the first time since the war, Admiral Park Ho would address the galaxy. He walked to the central platform slowly. He looked older than he had before the war. The weight of 2 billion deaths and the choices that followed had left marks on his face that would never fade. The chamber fell silent. 1 year ago, Park began, the Empire attacked humanity without warning. They killed 2 billion of our people. Men, women, children, families who were eating breakfast when fire fell from the sky. He looked around at the assembled aliens. Many of them looked away. "You watched, all of you watched as our colonies burned. You said nothing, did nothing. You believed as the believed that humanity was weak, that we would accept our deaths quietly, that we would bow before superior force." His voice hardened. "You were wrong." Screens around the chamber lit up with images from the war. Human ships tearing through fleets. Human soldiers capturing fortress worlds. The broken ruins of the military machine. In 6 weeks, we destroyed an empire that had stood for 10,000 years. We killed their warriors. We shattered their fleets. We burned their military to ashes and stood over the graves of their commanders. Park paused. We could have done more. We had weapons that could have ended their species entirely. We had rage enough to use them. We stood at the edge of genocide and we chose to step back. The images changed. Now they showed human soldiers building shelters on Prime, doctors treating wounded civilians, engineers restoring power and water to destroyed cities. We chose mercy, not because we were weak, not because we were afraid. We chose mercy because that is who we want to be. He walked to the edge of the platform, looking directly at the alien representatives. For 200 years, humanity chose peace. We limited our military. We locked away our weapons. We smiled and traded and built hospitals on distant worlds. Many of you saw this as weakness. You believed we were prey animals, pretending to be equals. His eyes were cold. Now you know the truth. We chose peace because we understood what we were capable of. We chose kindness because we had seen the alternative. We chose to be gentle because we knew, better than any species in this galaxy, what happens when humans stop being gentle. The chamber was completely silent. This is your warning. Humanity desires friendship. We want to build, not destroy. We want to heal, not hurt. But if anyone attacks us again, we will not hold back. We will not show restraint. We will unleash everything we have, and we will not stop until nothing remains of our enemies but memory and ash. Park straightened his uniform. The choice is yours. Be our friends and prosper with us. Be our enemies and be destroyed. He turned and walked away. This meeting is over. Ambassador watched the human admiral leave. Around him, representatives whispered and argued and worried. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted forever. He had tried to warn he had told them that humans were different, that their peace was a choice, not a weakness. No one had listened. He hoped the rest of the galaxy would listen now. Captain handed in her resignation 3 months after the war ended. She stood in Admiral Park's office, wearing civilian clothes for the first time in 20 years. "Are you sure about this?" Park asked. "I did what I was trained to do." His voice was flat. "I killed efficiently and without mercy. I was exactly what humanity needed during the war." She looked at her hands. "I do not know if I can be what humanity needs during peace." Park nodded slowly. "What will you do?" "I am going to New Seoul. They are rebuilding. They need teachers for the new schools." A ghost of emotion crossed her face. "My sister was a teacher. I thought I might try to continue her work." "You think you can teach children, after everything you have done?" Was quiet for a moment. "I have spent my whole life learning how to destroy. Perhaps it is time to learn how to build." She saluted one final time and left. Dr. Bin returned the weapons to storage with new locks and new codes. Her assistant Ho watched as massive vault doors sealed shut. "Do you think we will need them again?" he asked. "I hope not." Bin looked at the sealed vaults. Every weapon in there represents a choice humanity made long ago, a choice to survive at any cost, to destroy anything that threatened us. But we chose peace. We chose to try peace. Bin turned away from the vaults. "The weapons stay. The training continues. We hope for the best, but we prepare for the worst. That is what it means to be human." She walked toward the exit. "Perhaps one day we will be able to destroy these things forever. Perhaps one day the galaxy will be safe enough that we do not need weapons of mass destruction." She shook her head. "But that day is not today." Sergeant Du stayed on Prime to oversee the rebuilding. He worked alongside former enemies, constructing new buildings where old ones had fallen. One afternoon, a child approached him. She was small and scared and curious. "You are human," she said. "Yes. My father says humans are monsters. He says you destroyed everything." Du knelt down to her level. "Your father is not wrong. We did destroy many things, we killed many people." He met her eyes. "But we are trying to build things now. Does that make us monsters?" The child thought about this. Monsters do not build, monsters only break. "Then perhaps we are not monsters." Du smiled gently. "Perhaps we are just people, people who did terrible things and are now trying to do better." The child considered this. Then she handed him a small tool. "You can help me fix my house," she said, "if you want." Du took the tool. "I would like that very much." Lieutenant Han Mira published her intelligence report 1 year after the war. It revealed something troubling. Several other species had been watching the attack. Some of them had considered joining. The report named names. It showed communications. It proved that humanity's so-called allies had been ready to turn on them the moment they appeared weak. The galaxy was shocked, but Admiral Park was not surprised. "We have no friends," he said in a private meeting with Earth's leaders. "We have only interests. The other species will work with us when it benefits them and betray us when it does not. This is the truth of galactic politics." "Then what do we do?" "We stay strong. We stay vigilant. We hope for peace while preparing for war." Park looked out the window at Earth. "And we never forget what we are capable of. Never let anyone else forget either." In a quiet corner of the galaxy, on a world that had not been touched by war, an alien parent sat with their child. The child had been asking questions about humans. "Why does everyone fear them?" the child asked. "They seem nice. They build hospitals. They help other species." The parent looked at their child with ancient eyes. "Because they are kind, little one. They are the kindest species in the galaxy." The parent pulled the child close. And the kind ones are always the most dangerous when you force them to stop being kind. Why? Because cruelty is easy for cruel beings. It is what they know. It is what they are. The parent's voice grew soft. But when a kind being becomes cruel, they do so with all the intelligence and creativity they once used for kindness. They find new ways to hurt, new ways to destroy, because they understand deeply what they are taking away. The child shivered. The humans could have destroyed the completely. They chose not to. They chose mercy. The parent looked at the stars. Remember this, little one. Remember that mercy was a choice, and choices can change. Far away, on a rebuilt new Sol, children played in parks again. They laughed and ran and dreamed of futures they had almost lost. Above them, human ships patrolled the sky, keeping watch, keeping peace. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity hoped it would remember. But if it forgot, if anyone attacked human worlds again, the response would be the same. The weapons were ready. The soldiers were trained. The will remained. Peace through kindness when possible. Victory through strength when necessary. And mercy always, as long as it was deserved. This was the human way. This had always been the human way, and the galaxy would never forget it.